My name is Oricel Caminero. I am Dominican. I live in the Dominican Republic. My major is in business administration with an MBA in executive management and a bunch of other courses and certification that I lose track of. I'm now working as a consultant and trainer for leadership positions and leadership teams. I'm a executive coach as well. And this is in the most recent years. In the early years of my career, I spent about 20 years in management in different positions in the Dominican Republic, but also interacting with many people from other countries. Well, it depends a lot on the company and the context. We work with different companies, starting from small companies to big companies, companies in electricity business or engineering or manufacturing or banks, service, small, tourism too. So the profile changes a little bit from industry to industry, but I can say that some of the common traits must be, the number one is relational. Dominicans are very relational, so you need to be a people person. You need to present yourself as friendly and approachable, because if you are perceived as distant, then people will have more trouble understanding you and following you. So relational would be one aspect of it. There's a big, how do you say, we still have a lot of, I forgot the word, but like old thinking in terms of leadership of male and female in the workplace, even though the ladies have a big space in leadership. Many major leaders, CEOs, and many important executives in many Dominican companies are ladies. It is still, there are things that are allowed to the man that are not allowed to the lady. So yes, there's a difference. The man is allowed to be more tough, to be more rude, to be more prepotent, but that is totally unacceptable in a lady. Yes, we still have some of the traits from dictatorship times. From 1930 to 1960s, we had a dictatorship, and a little bit in the 70s, and yeah, 70s and part of the 60s still was very, not a dictatorship per se, but very, how do you say, I don't know, centralized. And still power is seemed very centralized in the figure of the head, like the CEO or the president. People look up to this person. So yes, there's a tendency to be centralized. There's a tendency to do as I say, especially in the older generations. In the newer generations, it's been changing, and the newer generations have a different expectation of leadership. But in the older generation and still in the government, many things are handled like that, very centralized to what the boss says. Do what the boss says. There's a saying that I need to always fight against it. It's a saying, and it's in the mindset, and it's something that I believe that I have to help the people be free from. I'm going to translate it. I don't know if there's a similar one in your culture, but it says, and I know that my Dominican friend might relate to, it says, I'm going to say it in Spanish, hay que amarrar la chiva donde diga el dueño, aunque se ahorque. So it would be, you have to tie the animal, the goat, whatever the owner tells you to, even though it will choke. Like, choke, like, do what the boss says, even if it doesn't work. Because that's what he said. So that's what you should do. And it's like, no, guys, you're thinkers. Come on. They pay you to think, not to just obey rules. And there's this mindset in the employees and people in the Dominican that we as trainers need to fight against, because otherwise there's no creativity, there's no innovation, there's no critical thinking, because you only have one person thinking, and that would be whoever is in charge, and the rest of the people are just followers following orders, and then there's no team and there's no leadership development when you have that. Yes, there's hierarchy. There are some things you shouldn't do. Like, for example, if you're in a meeting and your boss is saying something, even though he's wrong, you should not correct him in front of other people. You should just nod, and then in private, if you're lucky, then you state the different point of view. But in a public environment, that would be very dangerous. So I would say seven, six. Varies on the company and the sector. Some sectors are more vertical, like the financial sector is more vertical, but the engineering and manufacturing it's more, in terms of when you have middle management and upper management, it's more equal because it is more based in standards. In engineering, it's more based in standards, not opinions. But in other sectors, like services industry, there's a lot of subjectivity. So you can maybe see that more. And financial sector is one of them. I mean, it's the army and then the financial sector, in my opinion. If you're a foreigner, well, you have points to your advantage. Dominicans are very open to foreigners. Hospitable, you can say that. That's why our tourism industry is so strong. That's the number one economy activity for our country, because our people are naturally friendly and are naturally inclined to help others. But things that would help a foreigner would be, don't present yourself as superior, like a know-it-all, even though you do, even though you may know things that other people don't know. Don't be prepotent. Don't show it. That's not. It's not going to help. Also, be flexible. So when you have an agreement on a due date, for example, or something to be delivered, maybe if you're European, you will have, oh, I need this Friday at 10 p.m., at 10 a.m. Well, if you really, really need it Friday by 10 p.m., you should ask for it by Thursday at 4. So you have time for, how do you say that, imprevistos, unforeseen. And do not get angry when your Dominican person may not be able to meet some of your deadlines or requirements, because they're so dealing with so many unforeseen things, they are struggling. But if you present yourself, hey, you said, it was going to be 5 and it's 5:01, what happened? And if you show yourself as angry, you're creating distance, because you're not putting yourself in the position of where the other person is, what the other person is dealing with, especially if it involves that person getting other suppliers and vendors. And if the list goes on, there's a lot that can happen. So you need to have a time frame of flexibility, and that is important. You need that. It's not going to be fixed and perfect the way that it could happen to you in another country. It's different. And you must also add that culturally, people are more relaxed. So they're not uptight. So add to that, and then you have, complications. Get yourself to know the culture and the people. I mean, if you are going to come, like, experience the day-to-day, like if you're in a company and your employees take public transportation every day to get to work, you should try that. If you're living here, instead of having your private chauffeur drive you from home to work, try taking the public transportation and experience what your employees are experiencing. They're going to respect you for that, and they are going to think that you're interested in them, and that's going to motivate you to become interested in you as well, and to get to know your culture and to get to know you better, and then try to accommodate themselves to you because they see that you are already trying to accommodate yourself to them. You have everything. You have everything. I've seen all types. I cannot say there's one type. I can only say that it depends on the generation. The older generation seems to be more authoritative and to consider it respect when people follow their orders without questioning. That's, if you're 55 or older, I see that. In the younger generation, I see more flexibility, more even in that generation, even though people tend to be authoritative, they are also very paternalist. So in the older generation, you see all these benefits, people that have their businesses, and for their long-term employees, they will buy their house. At the end of their retirement, you retire and you have your own house, or you get a big car or a big bonus, or if your family is sick, they help you because there's this paternalistic approach, again, authoritative as well. In the younger generation, I see a more balanced approach, more in terms of colleagues, as colleagues, being able to negotiate, to respect each other's perspective, and not consider that one has to be wrong and the other has to be right. So there's more opportunity for dialogue. But in general terms, I don't think there's one specific dominant. I would say it depends on the generation. There are two authors. They are Dominican businessmen that they started from scratch, and they now own big companies. And one is Victor Mendez Capellan, and his company Vimenca. He's the representative for Western Union, and they have banks and they have different entities, different companies. The group is around, but his main business is the representative for Western Union, all the remittances. And you know that we have a big population of Dominicans living abroad, sending remittances to their family here. And the other author is Manuel Corripio, and he owns the Corripio Group. The Corripio Group, they own media, television channels, newspapers, printing, department stores. I mean, it's like 50 companies. It's just huge. And he started from very little. And so in those two books, they tell their story. Dominicans do not like to say up front negative things. It is very difficult for them. So people would tend to go to one of the two extremes. You could have people that don't know how to manage it, and they just say it bluntly. I don't like your work. Change, or I'll fire you. They don't know better, so they just poof, explode. Or you have the people going around and around and around and around, and more indirect, but the employee doesn't understand. Even we have that with performance evaluations. Like, for example, on a scale from 1 to 4, people would say, oh, well, in this aspect I say a 3, in this aspect I say a 3, and a 3, and a 3. And then when you're the HR person, 2 months after the performance evaluation, the manager wants to fire this person because he's doing a poor job. And you say, but his evaluation is 3. And they say, well, you know how it is, but I really don't like his work. And you say, well, no, you need to deal with it. You need to talk to him, and it's a struggle because it's hard for people to know how to do that. So it's one area that we work in training, and we notice that it's really hard because people only like to give good news. and they only like to have the positive side. You know, they're very good at that. But in the negative, it's hard. So if you're a foreigner, you need to become an expert in body language. Yes, and that is a struggle that Dominican have sometimes with Europeans. Europeans tend to be more direct, and so people find it very hard and offensive. If you're going to say something negative, you should put some flowers around it, like some good things, you know, and to really make it look nice. Because if you just say it like that, then it's going to be very offensive. People are not going to understand you. It's going to be hard. For me, my leadership role models would be people of integrity, people that are searching to make a difference, that make an effort, that are committed and passionate to make a difference in the lives of others and in their surroundings, and that really give from themselves to others. I'm thinking of two people right now. I prefer not to mention their names, but those would be some of their traits, so you can know them a little bit.